Hi, friends. Welcome to the Do Life podcast, where we talk about life, its challenges, and how to tackle common issues with cutting edge science and a splash of metaphysical properties. I'm your host, life coach Layla. Welcome to today's episode on transforming negative thought patterns and shifting limiting beliefs. Now, I know what you're thinking. Layla, that sounds like a lot of life coach lingo. I don't know what you just said to me. That's fine. Let me break it down for you. So, many people struggle with negative thought processes and self-doubt, which leads to a lot of obstacles in common areas of their life, developing strong relationships, trusting people, confidence in general. It can not only affect your self-esteem, but your overall happiness, your career growth, your relationships, amongst many other things. Most of us aren't even aware of the negative thought patterns that we have in our brains because it's just normal to us. That's just how we think. We've never really thought about it or done any kind of mindful awareness of what's going on in our brain. So today, we're going to obviously get into the science a little bit about negative self-talk, what it is, how it can affect you. We'll also talk about ways to overcome it and be more mindful of it and how to maybe replace it with some more positive self-talk. I love Marissa Peer. She's training me in RTT and hypnotherapy right now, and I guess there's a little bit of NLP in there as well. But she says, tell yourself a better lie. And I love that phrase, mostly because I read somewhere it's like 70 to 90% of our thoughts are just recycled thoughts. We think the same thing over and over and over. And, whether we're trying to solve a problem or overcome something, it's still the same thoughts repeating in our brain. So if you wake up every morning and you're like, oh, I'm going to go to work, these people are going to be awful, I'm going to have a terrible day, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, and we'll talk about that a little bit later too, but you're basically drawing that negativity to you. So there's no real concrete evidence that any of that is real or true or going to happen. So if you wake up in the morning and you think all these negative things, essentially you're lying to yourself because you don't know those to be factual or true. That's just the thoughts in your brain. So instead, when you wake up and you think, I'm going to go to work and these people are just going to shut up and leave me alone today, and we're going to have a great day, and I'm going to come home in a great mood, and everything's going to turn around from here. There's no concrete evidence that that's real either. But if you're going to lie to yourself, tell yourself a better lie. I love Marissa Peer for putting that little nugget of information in my head because I think about it often when I'm in my coaching sessions. A lot of times I'll hear people and their negative self-talk comes out loud and they say things like, I'm not good enough, or I'm different, or it's not meant for me. And those are pretty much the three core common self-talks. Like no matter what you're saying, like if you're like, I'm not going to make the team, you're just telling yourself you're not good enough. Basically anything that you can think of kind of breaks down to one of those three things. And when I hear those statements or comments being made from my clients in one-on-one coaching sessions, I love this question, and it is, what if the opposite were true? Again, most of the time, these beliefs and negative thought processes in our head don't have any core meaning or value. They're just lies. They're just things that we're telling ourselves. So if you think about it for a second, like, oh, I'm not going to make the team, I'm not good enough. What if the opposite were true? I love that question because it just changes your perspective so rapidly. What if I am good enough and I do make the team? And then you're flooded with all these emotions and these good thoughts and feelings, and that is what you're going to draw into you. So if you're going to lie to yourself, tell yourself a better lie. All right, I'm done with my little ramble there, my little speech. Let's get into the real science behind what is negative self-talk and why you want to avoid it. But before we do that, I just want to say, if you like the content so far and you're a listener, please subscribe, leave a review, leave comments, do all the things that helps me grow my channel so I can keep bringing you content and lots of little nuggets of wisdom like this. So that's my shameless plug for the day. I won't do it again. I'm just kidding. I'm going to do it again at the end of the episode. But not until then. Now, let's get into the science of this. So, first of all, what exactly is a negative self-talk pattern, and how can I acknowledge it and or avoid it? The science shows that a negative thought pattern is a rigid, absolute, and often false way of thinking that can lead to negative consequences. They're often based on selective facts or false beliefs and disregard important facts that could actually lead to a better outcome. So what exactly does that mean? That's a lot of words. Think of it this way. So your crush is coming down the street and you think, oh my gosh, my hair looks a mess. I didn't put any makeup on. This is not the outfit I wanted him to see me in. He's never going to talk to me. And you get in this slump, this mood, because you're talking negatively to yourself. So your crush comes by and he looks you up and down and he sees and feels this energy that you're emitting of, oh my God, I'm gross, please don't talk to me. So then he doesn't, and he keeps walking and doesn't acknowledge you because you are emitting that energy. You're saying, I don't want to be acknowledged, I don't want to be bothered, I'm trying to turn myself inside out right now because I'm so embarrassed or shameful or whatever. Your negative self-talk created that negative event because he didn't talk to you. And so now you're in your head thinking, okay, well, he didn't talk to me. Clearly he's not interested in me. He probably likes my best friend instead, or, all of the other negative self-talks that's going to come because of this negative outcome that you created. And I know that's kind of a hard pill to swallow, but we are in charge of our reality to a point. So what if the opposite were true? What if your crush is coming down and you're like, oh man, I don't have any makeup on. This isn't the outfit I wanted to see. Oh well, I'm here and I can't wait to smile at him. I can't wait to make eye contact with him. My eyes are beautiful. He's going to absolutely fall in love with my eyes. It doesn't matter if I have makeup on him or not. I want someone to love me for me, whether I'm all done up or not. And we'll see if he passes the test. So you're putting positive thoughts in your brain and committing to having that confidence and being okay with who you are authentically. We did a whole episode of authenticity. I highly suggest you look into that when you're done with this one. But anyway, so your crush comes by, you're full of confidence, you're happy to smile and eager to bat your lashes at him or her, whatever. And they show up, you make eye contact, you guys give each other a smile, and he walks away. And then maybe even turns back around and does a second take, gives you a little wink or a smile, another smile. And he walks off and you guys are both filled with all these happy butterflies, excited feelings, the exact opposite of the scenario before. So once again, this is just a way to show how your thoughts affect your reality. And there's a lot of metaphysical properties as far as that whole scenario goes. We're not going to get into that just yet. We might get into it a little bit later, but we're still talking about the science. We got to do the science first, and then we can do the fun woo-woo stuff. Think about how this negative self-talk, self-thinking impacts your overall mental well-being, your relationships, your life in general. Now, this isn't always our fault. A lot of times, like I said, we don't even realize that we have negative self-talk because it's something we've been doing since we were a child. These negative thought patterns can stem from bullying or poor parenting or things that happened even in younger years, mistakes you made and you just keep beating yourself up over them. It can happen from peer pressure. Social media is another one. So many people are on the internet comparing their lives and themselves to the people that you see on the internet. And that's like the most detrimental thing that you can do is compare yourself to other people, because you're never going to be other people. You're not supposed to be other people. You're supposed to be you, and you're supposed to be happy being you. So stop comparing yourself to other people. Just, I'm going to put my foot down right now. Like, stop it. Just bad. No, stop it. But surprise, surprise, a lot of negative self-talk can come from comparing yourself to other people. And that happens a lot in your adolescent years. You're used to doing that because, oh, Johnny likes Susie more than me. It's because I'm fat or because I'm foreign or, whatever stories we told ourselves when we were kids. Those thoughts and patterns kind of stick with you into adulthood, and they're just second nature and you're not aware of them. So knowing where they stem and where they come from will help make you more aware of them and help you address them. Whose voices are those in your head? Is that really your voice? Is that your parents' voice? Is that an old teacher or pastor or somebody yelling at you in your thoughts, in your brain, in your head? Whose voice is that? Most of the time, the negative self-talk isn't you. When you think about how would you talk to your best friend and how would your best friend talk to you? Do you talk to you like you would talk to your best friend? Do you talk to you like your best friend would talk to you? If that's not the case, then where are those thoughts coming from? If you wouldn't say those things to your best friend and your best friend wouldn't say those things to you, then who is talking? Negative self-talk can also come from mental disorders. If you have clinical diagnosis, depression or anxiety or bipolar or BPD or any of the other things, those negative self-talk can stem straight from that. You might not have ever had an incident that created that kind of thought process or pattern, but the mental disorder itself just showed up, and that's kind of what it does. Cognitive behavioral therapy should help with that. So again, mindfulness and some of the other things that we'll talk about as far as how to deal with that. A lot of the reasons you want to eliminate negative self-talk from your brain is because it causes stress and anxiety, lack of self-esteem, lack of confidence. It can cause a reduction in creativity. It can lead to addiction and eating disorders and suicidal ideation. So those are a lot of reasons why the science doesn't want you to talk about yourself negatively. And now for the good stuff. Let's talk about how to stop these negative thoughts. Number one, I've already mentioned, is mindfulness, being cognitively aware of when you're having these self-talks. A couple ways you can do this is you can journal. When you write down your thoughts and feelings, when you journal what's in your head out on paper, and you take a moment, maybe walk away from it for a day and come back to it the next day and you reread it, who is talking? Is that your brain? How are you talking to yourself? Is everything you say super negative? Where can you find the lie? What part of those thoughts that you wrote on paper are true? Can you define them as true and real? And if they're not, what if the opposite were true? And tell yourself a better lie. I might say that 87 more times, it's whatever. But when you're reading what you journaled, you're just randomly writing. You can use journal prompts. There's all kinds of things on Google. But just write, like, what are you feeling? And then when you revisit that, reread it and see, like, is this even real? How much of it is negative? And being mindful of how you talk to yourself in your head by seeing it out on paper is the first and foremost, in my personal opinion, the best way to kind of gather how negative you are to yourself. This reminds me of a fun story. So the first time I was aware of mindfulness was at a manifestation summit. And I was learning that our thoughts are just vibrations and that all of us just vibrate and resonate at a certain frequency or vibration. And our thoughts do too. So when we're thinking bad, negative thoughts, we're attracting bad, negative things. That whole self-fulfilling prophecy thing kind of comes full circle. And I guess we're done with the science of it. So now we can get into the woo-woo. I know I told you we were going to get into how to overcome, but we're going to get into the woo-woo first because I don't want to forget that because this is fun. So I was at this manifestation summit and they were basically talking about how our thoughts are vibrations. And when we are thinking bad, negative thoughts, we're creating a frequency for bad, negative things to happen. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Alexander and the Horrible, Terrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. This is one of my favorite books as a child because it resonated, because I didn't know to be aware of my negative self-thoughts and was definitely self-talk, whatever. But it was definitely a problem because I was in a very negative household. I was surrounded by negative people. So I became negative. Surprise, surprise. And basically the story goes like he woke up and some minor inconvenient thing happened. And instead of getting over it and moving on and being like, oh, well, that sucked, let's get over it, he dwelled on it. And because he couldn't stop thinking about it, more things happened. And then he dwelled on that. And then more things happened. And then it just built up and built up till he was like ready to explode because he was focused on the bad thing. So more bad things came. And the more I realized how real that is in real life, the more I was able to kind of pay more attention to my thoughts and be like, okay, where is my negativity coming from? You get the idea. So in order for me to change my vibration, in order to manifest the things I wanted, I have to be hyper aware of my thought processes. And one of the cognitive behaviors I created was, this is so silly, but I created the GPS voice. Whenever you make a wrong turn, it goes redirecting. So every time I would catch myself thinking something negative, I would hear that voice go redirecting. And I swear the first week or so I decided to implement this practice, you would have thought I was absolutely insane. The amount of negative thoughts that I had on a daily basis that I was completely unaware of until I became hyper aware made me feel like I was crazy. So apparently I like to imagine fights with my boyfriend on a regular basis. Not that that's a good thing or healthy in any way, shape, or form, because 90% of the time I would create these scenarios in my head, and then when I would have a conversation with him about it later, he'd be like, oh yeah, that's fine, okay, whatever. And in my head we had this whole hour-long fight and debate, and it was a problem. And I know he's done the same thing. We've had this kind of conversation and joked about it. But back then I would catch myself imaginarily arguing with him constantly throughout the day, and I would hear the GPS redirecting, and I would try to think of something fun or something positive. When our oldest daughter, we were looking up awful things on the internet. We were looking up serial killers and what they did and all the things. And afterwards we were like, okay, we need a palate cleanser. And so she just typed in puppies. So that's kind of my go-to in my brain. I think it's so funny. So when I hear the GPS go redirecting and I'm thinking about fighting with him or whoever, somebody in traffic or, just something negative in my brain, in order to replace a negative thought, you have to create a positive thought. So my go-to was just I just heard her little voice and it was just like puppies. So that's a little bit of my psychosis. No, I'm kidding. But just something that I did was being super mindful of all my negative self-talk. If this is something that you want to adopt, I want you to know that you're not crazy, that it is okay to hear the GPS voice in your head no less than 937 times a day because of how negative your thought process is. And it's so life-changing to become aware of it and to change it. And if you can take whatever you were thinking about and turn it into a positive. So sometimes instead of fighting with my husband, I would picture us getting along and happy and holding each other and being, somewhere on vacation or something like that. So I would fill that negative thought with a positive thought. And then it trickles down into everything. I said all that to basically say that you want to be mindful of your negative self-talk and replace it with a positive self-talk. Like what we did in the crush scenario earlier, or making the team. So instead of thinking all the bad negative thoughts, think about the good things. Another way you can tackle negative self-talk is daily affirmations. I know back in the day, and this is my age is showing, back in the day, the only time you heard about affirmations was Stuart Smiley on Saturday Night Live. I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. And he would turn into the mirror and say that. And I always remembered it as a Saturday Night Live skit. So I always thought that was super cheesy and only losers did that. And the more I've done some research and the more I've focused on personal self-development, the more I realized that those affirmations are amazing and good for him. And shame on Saturday Night Live for making fun of people for doing it, because for so many years I thought that was such a lame loser type thing to do. And this whole time, I could have been so much more amazing as a human had I known that that stuff works. So saying positive affirmations and not just looking in the mirror and being like, I'm pretty, I'm rich, I'm a millionaire. No, get the feeling behind it. Like every morning I tell myself all kinds of crazy stuff and I believe it is the crazy part of it. I get my emotions involved. I have happy cried tears of happiness. I guess that's happy cry. That was a bit redundant. Anyway, I have cried in the mirror because I was so happy at the thought of something happening that hadn't happened. And getting those emotions involved made it happen. I don't know if that's 100%. There's the Pareto rule, the 80-20. So, 80% of it was my morning affirmations, staring in the mirror and being crazy, and 20% of the actual work I put in to make it happen. So I will say that. But again, back to negative self-thinking, self-thought, self-talk, whatever. Back to negative self-talk. If you're in the mirror and you're saying positive things, even if you don't believe them, try to. The more you do it, maybe the more you will believe them. Say things like, if you can't sit in the mirror and say, I'm beautiful, and believe that, say something like, I'm perfect the way I am, or I really like my eyes, or my eyes are gorgeous, and everybody thinks I have pretty eyes, or I don't know, whatever is going to make you feel good. Maybe I'll do an episode on creating affirmations or something along those lines. But there's a lot of information on the internet of how you can do morning or nightly or midday affirmations, how often you should do it, what you should say to yourself. All I know is that you're replacing negative thoughts by deliberately saying positive thoughts. And when you're looking at yourself in the mirror, it makes it that much more true and believable, because sometimes some people say you're actually talking to your subconscious. So when you're telling your subconscious, we're going to have an amazing day today and nobody's going to get me down, you believe that to your core. And then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, but in a good way this time, unlike every other time. Something along those lines, but not the same. It's different, but slightly, is positive visualization. This is where you take a moment to close your eyes and you picture. So when I do the 6-phase meditation, it has positive visualization involved, where you close your eyes and you picture your day. This is how your morning starts. This is your afternoon. And you're just briefly skimming through, like it's like you're watching your life in 5x fast forward, and you just go through the day, but you're picturing everything happening exactly how you want it. Everything's nice and happy and perfect. And that doesn't mean that everything's going to be nice and happy and perfect every day. We're always going to have some sort of setbacks or problems or issues that we have to tackle. But what I have noticed is that when I do my daily visualization and my day segmentation, is when those setbacks and those things happen, I'm not as upset by them. I'm able to tackle them a lot easier and with a lot less stress involved. And then the next thing, I'm over it and I'm back to my visualization of the perfect day, as opposed to when you don't have that idea of what your day looks like. Like, part of manifestation is to have a big picture vision and know what you're working towards, know what you want. When you do that on a daily basis and you just break it down to, I'm going to have a good day and we're going to be productive and we're going to get all these things done. When you have these little minor setbacks, you're able to get over them and move on with your day and your vision. When you don't have that vision, those minor setbacks can just throw a wrench in the whole thing. And you're like, oh my God, this is the worst thing that could happen. I don't know how we're ever going to get over this, blah, blah, blah. And then all the negative self-talk floods in and creates the horrible, terrible, no good, very bad day. So when you can thwart that in the beginning, when you can start your day off with positive visualization, then when the negative things happen throughout the day, they're not so negative because you're focused on that positive. I hope that makes sense. And then we kind of briefly talked about manifestation is another way to kind of positively visualize, but you're bringing positive self-thoughts, affirmations, and manifestations and doing all of the things all in one. So you're working towards a big picture vision. All the little minor setbacks aren't going to hold you back because you're going to take your failures and your setbacks as lessons things that you needed to learn in order to move forward to achieve those goals and or manifestations. So when you're on your negative self-talk removal journey, that's a lot of words, but when you're on your journey, you're gonna have some sort of setback. You're going to run into some sort of obstacle. There's gonna be something that happens and you can't get out of that negative mindset, that negative mode. And I want you to know that that's okay. It's 100% normal. We're human. Our brains are hardwired to protect us from these negative things. So you're going to have setbacks. You're going to have days and instances, and that's okay. Just know that they're meant to teach you lessons and help you grow from them. So once again, we don't dwell on the negative. We don't stay there. We acknowledge it for what it is, and we move past it. Start small, start baby steps. Again, just writing down how you feel in a journal and picking apart the negative statements. And this isn't to beat yourself up over it or berate or belittle yourself for having these thoughts. It's to just be aware of them so you can be more mindful of removing them. So when you look at your journal paper and you have all of these writings down, maybe rewrite it in a more positive manner. And then keep that in your brain. So there's a lot of things that you can do, and I don't want to take up all your time and go into everything in detail, but just know that setbacks are there to teach you lessons and help move you forward in your growth. We all have our inner critic, and like I said earlier, defining who that inner critic is it your parents? Is it your pastor? Figuring out who the inner critic is and whether or not you want to continue to listen to them is integral for managing your negative self-talk. And also, and this is really important, is who are you surrounding yourself with? This is a big key factor in how you talk to yourself and how you see yourself, is who you surround yourself with. Do you have a loving, caring, and supportive environment? Or is everybody around you reaffirming the things that you're telling yourself? Are you trying to make goals or do things and people are like, oh, you're never going to do that. You're never going to amount to that. You're not good enough. Who's your support system? Who's in your corner? Who's rooting for you? Maybe put their voice inside your head. Your best friend who is safe and has your best interest in mind. Not everybody has best friends like that. Some people are real confused on who their best friend should be. But if you have a real good friend who loves you and cares about you and supports you, put their voice inside your head. Me and my friend Astra, we have this running joke. I made her a bracelet, and it's just the little letters, but it's what would Layla encourage Astra to do, because she had so much negative self-talk. And I was like, who are you? You're not allowed to talk to my best friend that way. I don't appreciate your tone. And we just had these jokes running back and forth, but it's so important to have somebody cheering you on in your corner. And if you can put their voice inside your head, like I know she'll call me up and she'll be like, I did this thing and I knew you were going to be so proud because I heard you tell me to do the thing. Like she's got my voice in her head, cheering her on and making her do the things. And I love that so much for her and for anybody, because that's how we should be thinking in our brains. We should have our cheerleader, our support system. Now, again, you need to make sure that the people that you're putting in your head are the right people, and absolutely have your best interest in mind before we're doing that. But know your surroundings and who you're surrounding yourself with. Are they cheering you on? Are they bringing you down? Are they the voices in your head? Who can you replace them with? We've talked about replacing the negative with a positive. So if it's a negative voice in your head, who can you replace that with that's positive? So these are just some things that I wanted to think about, that I want you to think about. So just to recap today, we talked about what negative self-talk and limiting beliefs are. We talked about how to overcome them and be more mindful of them. We talked about the science and the metaphysical of them. And I gave you some tips and tricks on how to be more aware and remove and replace them with positive thoughts. I think that pretty much covers everything. I really appreciate you guys for watching my channel and being here or listening to the podcast. Again, I told you earlier I was going to do my little shameless plug, but if you would leave a review on Spotify. It really helps me exist and compete, because I know right now, if you type in Do Life podcast or YouTube, I don't show up. So, and again, I only have like 13 episodes and I'm still a baby channel. So doing all of those things helps me grow and helps me get the word out to more people, which is why I'm here in the first place. So I really do truly love and appreciate you for being here, for listening, for supporting me. It means the world to me. If you want to go deeper, I will link my website below. You can schedule one-on-one coaching with me. So yeah, do all the things. I love you. Have a great day, and let's go do life positively.